Hello everyone, I welcome you all to my YouTube channel. My name is Rajat and today, as you can see already on my screen, I'm going to talk about the roadmap to the credit risk learning. Many of you are new to the credit risk area. Many of you are not from engineering background and many of you don't know any coding language. So this question is very common in your head that how to enter as a fresher or a beginner level into the credit risk area. So today I'm going to answer each of those questions. And with this roadmap, you will be able to achieve a level of a credit risk beginner, or you will be job ready if you follow this schedule thoroughly for those couple of months. I am going to give you a time bound, properly fact-based schedule or timetable, whatever you want to call it. And if you follow this, you will get the results. So without wasting your time, let me take you forward. And before I move forward, if you are there on my channel for the very first time, make sure you subscribe because your subscription actually helped me to get motivated. And then I produce these kind of videos so often. Okay. So now let's move forward. Let's start talking about the credit risk primarily. So credit risk is consisting of two words, credit and risk. What is credit? So when we talk from the bank perspective, the most common answer will be a credit card of credit risk, credit card. So in this, the bank is giving you a card where they are giving you a credit limit. So obviously you are obligor. Okay. So you are a obligor who need to pay the money back to the bank. So let's say if you're not paying the money back, if you are not paying all the money back to the bank, in that case, you are a defaulter. So there is a risk associated whenever the bank is giving the credit card to any of you or any of us, I would say. So in that case, bank need to do those assessment that the proper credit risk assassination has been done for the customer, and then only the bank has given the loan. In terms of credit, because credit card itself also a loan, it's a type of loan only. Okay, but you don't understand that from general perspective. Once you work in this sector, you understand all of that. Okay, so this roadmap is specifically designed for the absolute beginner, aiming you to learn the credit risk, whether you are coming from engineering background or commerce background. All of those background have their own set of learnings and challenges also, because see, if you're coming from any of these background, you need to be very much focused on all the skills, because both the background doesn't complete all the skills required for being a credit risk analyst or a modeler. Okay, now let's talk about phase by phase, and I'll give you time also, that what time you need to get totally focused on. Okay, so in phase 0, I'm assuming that I'm talking to a complete beginner. Okay, just understand. So we need to understand what credit risk is, the primary thing, the topmost thing, most important thing. Okay, and why does it matter to the bank or the finance sector so that they are paying you the salary? Why does they care so much about it? You need to understand that concept thoroughly as per the ecosystem. See, every product have a life cycle, so you need to understand the life cycle of the product. Okay, now what are the main topics you need to cover? So what is risk management in banks? Type of risk, credit risk is one of the risk. Okay, there are several other type of risk like market, operational, there are so many other, but just focus, these are the three main type of risk do exist in banking industry. Then what is credit risk compared to market risk, operational risk? Okay, role of credit risk team in banks: retail products, which are like credit card, loans, student loans, auto loans, so many other. Okay, then corporate products. So what is the difference in both of them as per the definition of the credit risk? You need to understand that. Then you need to understand the credit risk life cycle. I am talking about these terms very fastly because I know all of them. Okay, but you need to be considerate to one topic for one day so that you can understand the bits and pieces of the topic. So now the life cycle is pretty much simple, but you have to understand what is the meaning of each of these words. Like what is the application process, what is approval process, what is monitoring of the loan or your product in the bank, and what is the meaning of default, and what is the meaning of recovery. You should have the full clarity how bank is performing all these things. Okay, so this is the phase 1. Now let's move forward and let's talk about, if you come from the different background, how you need to focus on the core of it. So there are three backgrounds. Let's say I divided it into basically three. So one is engineering, commerce and finance, because these people usually do credit risk job, and then the third is the other sector. Obviously if you're coming from a BSc or BCA, all of that is not part of the top two, right? So now your focus more should be on which thing. If you're from engineering background, so you should know the basic programming languages or the tools like Python, SQL are heavily used, and then quantitative models, which are statistical model. Okay, but what you need to bridge the gap, where you need to bridge the gap when you are an engineer, you need to learn finance, banking concepts thoroughly using different online portals. Okay, then if you come from a commerce and finance background like a MBA or something, so you need to understand the risk concepts. Then what is Basel model, what is the financial products, how the life cycle of those product works. Then What should be the bridge which you need to fill when you come from a non-technical background? You need to learn coding as soon as possible, and then data handling, because these are the two core pillar of any bank, like data and modeling. So those two things are the core pillar. Now for rest of the members, okay, you need to understand high level business understanding, primarily only considerate towards banking. Okay, don't go in generic understanding. And then what is the banking reporting, like IFRS 9 reporting, like Basel reporting, what are those, right? Then you need to learn financial basic concepts and analytical tools. What they can be, like SAS, you can learn Python, you can learn R language. These are the top 3 languages are getting used in the finance sector at the moment. Okay, so this is your phase 1, and the time was already mentioned there, so I think that should be clear to you. Now let me remove this. Let's talk about the phase 1, which is technically phase 1. Why I am saying this? Because phase 0 is common for all the members, so anybody need to learn that. Now in phase 1, if you talk about phase 1, okay, so the core concepts of credit risk, you need to give this much time. Why I am saying this? Because credit worthiness is one topic and credit score itself is a one topic. So if you're working on the learning part of credit worthiness, it should be taking 1 to 2 days. You don't need to learn the definition. You need to understand the crux of the whole process. That's why I'm saying credit worthiness is what? If you simply take the meaning of this in Hindi or any language, you'll say it's very easy, but that's not the point. You need to understand what is credit worthiness for bank, real life system across all the product. What is the meaning of credit worthiness in loans? What is the meaning of it in credit cards? What is the meaning of it in a mortgage, right? Loan backed security, right? So all those things you need to understand how the process of credit scoring works. Then retail or corporate lending, what is the difference in the retail lending as a bank versus corporate lending? Then probability of default, then LGD. These are the components of any model where you are doing the calculation of credit risk. So you need to pretty much focus on these things. Then the next thing will be, so the next thing is the EAD. So now using PD, LGD, EAD, you can calculate estimated loss. So you need to understand that thoroughly how the calculation of PD works, how logistic regression need to be applied. Then you will learn what is logistic regression. So that's why it's taking 2 to 4 weeks, like it's a month time, right? Then you need to read about Basel Accords. What are they? How they eventually evolved over a period of time. You should know all of that. Then credit risk models overview. What are the credit risk models? Why they came into the picture? And what are the body? Okay, body means what are those government body? They govern all of this, because it's not driven by a private sector thing. Okay, because this is heavily driven by the government of that particular country. Now let's talk about phase 2. In phase 2, you need to get yourself readily available on the skills which are technical, like tools and data skills. So learn Excel, okay, use W3 schools, all those websites, you can use that, okay. Risk calculations, then modeling itself is a word, but if you go deep into modeling, you will learn what are the type of models, okay, like any regulatory model, non-regulatory model. Under regulatory, there are IFRS 9, Basel. Non-regulatory, like you have your acquisition models, you have your behavior model, all those things you need to get focused on. Then SQL, how to fetch the data, what are the core skill set under SQL, what are the most important functions, what are the joins, properly learn that, okay. Then from Python perspective, model building, logistic regression, decision tree, these are the most commonly used, that's why I'm mentioning this. Now to learn Python, okay, there is a playlist on my channel, okay, there is a playlist which have over around somewhere 200 to 250 videos. As far as I remember, I think it has somewhere close to this one, and each topic has been broken down very thoroughly, okay. So you can try that. Now sample project you need to create in phase number 2, like PD calculations, SQL delinquency queries, you need to write that, take the help online, and then logistic regression model, because this is the most common model used, okay, because we always have a dependent and independent variable. So logistic regression is highly used in such area, and let me tell you, in real world, in banks, logistic regression is used 80 to 90% of time in most of the teams. Now let's talk about the other phases. Now phase 3 will talk about credit risk modeling, which is the core of it, okay. Now you are ready, you have learned SQL, you have learned the basics of banking, you have learned the rest of the concepts. Now land into scorecard model. All these I have covered already in the playlist which is there on my channel. All these models are thoroughly taken down by me itself as per my 12 to 13 years of experience. The only thing which is pending at the moment is the practical example in Python or SAS. So that is something I'm working on, that I'll do soon. Now logistic regression for probability of default, then decision tree for classification models, then what is vintage analysis, what is roll rate, what is the meaning of default definitions, How you calculate default definitions. So there comes the vintage analysis. So usually in banks, 90 plus DPD, which is 90 plus days past due, is known as a vintage analysis outcome. Okay. Now you can go back, watch my videos in the playlist where I have broken down each of them thoroughly. Then segmentation technique, something you need to learn by the end of your 9 to 12 weeks. So this will take couple of weeks, because logistic regression itself can be taken down into 3 to 4 days, and if you make a PD model, do practice, it's itself is going to take a whole week for you. Okay, then let's talk about phase 4. So phase 4 here is regulatory and practical skills. So for next 3 weeks you need to focus on IFRS 9, ECL. What is some other concepts which you need to learn is, let's say, CECL, it's very important. Then stress testing, which is mentioned here, then risk reporting, then overrides. Okay, monitoring, collections, and regulatory submission for formats. Like in India you have RBI, global you have Basel, in Canada you have OSFI. So all of them are governing bodies in different countries. Okay, so you should understand that. That is very important. Now let's talk about the further steps. Let's go down a bit. So this was the phase 4. Now here comes the phase 5. So by now you should be ready with the knowledge of programming, with the knowledge of concepts, all those things you should be well aware here. Now let's talk about the crux in the last. Okay, so you need to make sure you are adding the complete project. Take it from Google, you can search it, and even there are projects available in so many courses, different websites, you can purchase from them. Okay, then tool properly should be mentioned in your resume in proper keywords, like SAS should be there, SQL should be there, then Python should be there, then Pandas should be, all of them should be clearly specified. Then practice interview questions on PD, scorecard, Basel. Okay, like let's say I ask you, what is the difference in acquisition model versus a behavior model? What is the bad definition? What is the vintage analysis? What is DFAST test? What is CECL? What is the difference in DFAST and CECL? So many other stuff. Okay, and let's say you have IFRS 9. So I can ask you, in IFRS 9, how many phases are there? Why it's known as an impairment model? And in the first phase versus second phase, what is the difference in the probability of default? What is the difference in the phase 3 and phase 2 probability of default? So all those things we can check here from interviewer perspective. Okay, if you want me, I can prepare a complete interview playlist also. In terms of a single video should be enough, not a playlist. That's what I meant here. So now let's talk about the roadmap again in summary. Okay, so there are some phases. Phase 0, I spoke about banking and risk basics, then core credit risk concepts, that's what I call the step, and then Python, SQL, Excel, even I would mention here SAS also and R also, but these are the main technology should be there. That's why I'm not mentioning any other to not confuse you. Okay, then you have to understand credit risk modeling, then regulation and real world project. So if you summarize all this, so this is a kind of a whole real life roadmap if you want to be a credit risk analyst. Now let's move a bit down to get you through the last part of the video. Now I think it's fully visible to you now. Now guys, just have a look at this. So this is ultimately the breakdown. Phase 0, then these are weeks. On 4th week, phase 1, then this is phase 2 on 8th week, then 13th week, phase 3, then 16th week, phase 4, then 18 weeks, phase 5. If you convert this 18 weeks, so it's close to 4.5 months. If you are a beginner, that much time you have to spend. Otherwise, if you think that I'm going to cover all of this in maybe 1 or 2 months, then you are not going to retain that knowledge. Let me be very clear, okay? Because I have seen people, especially coming from different background and working under credit risk umbrella, then they try to learn everything in a single go. They try to boil the ocean, which should not be the case. Always focus on the low hanging fruits first. Now, what do I mean by that? The things which you can learn easily should be quickly learn. The things which are taking time, you should have a proper visibility that I'm going to give, let's say, logistic regression whole 3 days. If your learning curve is very fast, obviously you can trim this whole time frame and scheduling. But for most of the people who want to learn things deeply and they want to feel the ecosystem of credit risk, so they should be spending more time and a longer period of the total timetable. Okay. Now on that note, I would like to conclude this video. This whole plan I will share on the GitHub repository. The link will be there down in the description box. If you like this video, please hit the like button and please subscribe to my YouTube channel. Very soon I'm thinking to make so many coding videos also, because as of now I have tried to cover so many things from domain perspective, because these are very important. Coding is something you can get easily. I'm telling you actually, but domain is something everybody cannot crack till the time you are actually working on that project. So I'm trying to crack down all the things for all of you from that perspective, so that I should teach something which nobody else is doing. Okay. So on that note, I would like to take a leave from all of you. All the best, everybody. And I'll see you in the next video.